He wasn't alone, the bone-chilling truth behind the Black Maid's desperate rescue at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3, echoing like a warning through the stillness of the night. Shadows danced across the walls, and every creak in the old house sent shivers skittering up Clara's spine. She washed the dishes, lost in thought, when the hairs on her neck prickled. She wasn't alone. A feeling surged through her, a primal instinct that something sinister lurked just beyond her vision. Every flicker of the candlelight cast eerie shapes, twisting into ominous phantoms. The sharp tang of fear filled her lungs. And then, she heard it. A soft whimpering, muffled, almost human, drifting from the darkened hallway like an urgent cry for help. Clara's heart pounded hard against her ribs, tightening with each tentative step toward the sound. The faint scent of jasmine curled around her, sweet yet laced with something rotten. As she neared the hallway, she remembered the stories whispered among the staff about the house's dark past, $1 million estate and 1,000,000 horrors hidden in its walls. Suddenly, broken glass clattered to the floor, and Clara froze, her throat tightening, hands trembling. Could it be the legend of the Black Maid? Rumors swirled of a restless spirit haunting the halls. People said she roamed the house, seeking solace or revenge, eternally trapped between worlds. Clara shivered at the thought, and instinctively reached for the doorknob, her blood running cold as she prepared to confront whatever waited in the darkness beyond. But was it really just a story? Or was the truth far more bone-chilling? Clara hesitated, her heart racing. She could turn back, retreat to the warmth of the kitchen, ignore the sounds that rattled her core. But deep down, she knew the pull was too strong. Drawn by a desperate urge to help, she stepped into the darkness, her breath hitching as the air grew thick with tension. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Clara opened the door slowly. The air felt different, charged and thick like the moment before a storm. A dim light flickered at the end of the hallway, illuminating a figure half hidden in shadows. A scream lodged in her throat as realization washed over her. Someone was there, just a few feet away, but they weren't alone. She felt it, another presence, cold and impossible to identify, lurking in the corners. What was it? The shadows swirled as if alive, and Clara's pulse raced faster. As she stepped deeper into the light, a figure spun around, eyes wide with terror, mouth opening to speak, but the words died on their lips as the darkness seemed to close in around them, and Clara realized there were many secrets still to uncover. The figure, a young woman, stood trembling, her eyes darting around in panic. Clara's heart raced as she took in the disheveled appearance, the torn dress, dirt streaked across her face, and, most disturbingly, the wild fear that clouded her gaze. Who are you? Clara's voice was barely a whisper, swallowed by the silent house. The air thickened, and the shadows pressed closer as if they could hear the unspeakable secrets trembling in her words. Before the woman could answer, a low growl reverberated from the darkness behind her. Clara's breath hitched, a chill creeping into her bones as she realized that the other presence was not just a figment of her imagination. Something was lurking, concealed by the oppressive gloom. Run! The woman screamed, her voice bursting forth like a gunshot, shaking Clara from her shock. It's coming! Clara's instincts kicked in. She stepped forward, reaching for the girl, but her feet felt glued to the floor. What's coming? She managed, voice trembling. Don't stay here. You have to go. The urgency in the girl's tone dug deep into Clara's gut, igniting a flicker of fight amid the dread. Yet, as she moved closer, another sound echoed, like a whispering wind rustling through the trees, except there were no trees here. This was the hall of the house, a place where shadows lived and breathed. Clara froze as the growl rose into a snarl, raw and hungry. A figure emerged from the darkness within, sleek and unnatural, its eyes glistening with malice. "Clara!" The girl shouted again, panic-stricken. "You have to leave now." Just then, the light flickered violently, casting wild shadows that seemed to twist and writhe across the walls. Clara felt her stomach drop. Every part of her screamed to flee, yet there was a pull deep within her, a magnetic draw to the girl clearly in distress. "Stay close," Clara pleaded, reaching out. "Who are you? What is happening?" The girl's eyes darted to Clara, a flicker of hope breaking through her fear. I'm Lila. I was trapped here." Trapped? The meaning of her words crashed over Clara like a wave. The rumors, the legends, all of it now made sense. This was the maid, the one caught in the whispers of time, forever seeking justice or peace. Clara wanted to offer comfort, to promise she'd help, but the snarl tightened in the air, filling the hallway with palpable dread. Lila took a bold step toward Clara, determination seeping into her voice. "We have to find a way out. If it catches us." The house shook, the walls reverberating with a bellow that silenced Lila's words. The darkness seemed to pulse with life, lurking behind corners and engulfing their path. Clara could feel the cold seep deeper into her bones, that rotting scent of jasmine thickening as fear filled the air they breathed. "Run!" Clara finally yelled, shoving Lila ahead of her. But where would they run? The way back felt foreboding and heavy with dread, the shadows stretching their grip. All around them, the hum of darkness amplified the sense of danger. They darted down the hall, but the growl followed, a relentless predator trailing its prey. The flickering light began to dim, illuminating a door at the end barely visible but promising an escape. Clara lunged for it, Lila right behind her, but as they approached, a clawing figure broke through the shadows, blocking their escape. "Together!" Lila shouted, and Clara's heart raced as she grabbed her hand. The cold that enveloped them felt alive, and she could almost hear the whispers of those who had been lost here. Could they really escape? The answer loomed in that final flicker of dim light, as the growl rippled through the hallway one last time before the door swung wide, threatening to swallow them into whatever darkness lay beyond. But what awaited them on the other side? Would they find freedom, or something perhaps far worse? The moment Clara and Lila burst through the door, a sense of disorientation washed over them. They stumbled into a narrow room shrouded in darkness, the only light filtering through a cracked window high above, casting faint beams that danced amidst the dust motes. The air here was different, thick with the scent of decay and lost memories, but it felt oddly alive, a pulse throbbing in the silence. "Where are we?" Clara whispered, her voice sounding fragile in the dense darkness. She blinked, trying to adjust her eyes, but the shadows clung tightly to the room, swirling like smoke. I think it's the old servants' quarters," Lila replied breathlessly, her eyes now darting around in search of escape. "It feels like a trap, but it has to lead somewhere, anywhere away from." She hesitated, her face going pale. "That thing." A shivering chill slithered down Clara's spine at the thought. "We can't just stay here," she said, trying to suppress the tremor in her voice. "We need to do something." Lila nodded, determination stirring in her eyes. She moved toward a wooden door at the opposite end of the room, its surface weathered and cracked. Clara followed closely, every nerve ending screaming as if danger was nestling just behind them like a wild animal ready to pounce. As Lila turned the handle, a clattering sound echoed through the quarters, a collection of shattered glass and brittle wood. Clara's heart raced, and she shot a glance back into the shadows, half expecting something to leap out at them. But the dark remained still, cloaked and menacing. "Go!" Lila urged, flinging the door wide open. It squeaked in protest, revealing a narrow staircase that spiraled down into more darkness. With one last glance at the trembling shadows above, they plunged into the unknown. The steps creaked underfoot, each sound eliciting a cold sweat on Clara's brow. She glanced back, searching the gloom, feeling eyes watching them, unseen and ominous. "Do you think that thing is still out there?" she asked, fear clawing at her throat. Maybe. Or maybe it's waiting. Lila muttered, her voice a mere ghost around them. It knows we're here. It hungers. They reached the bottom of the staircase, and Clara caught a glimpse of the walls of faded wallpaper peeling away, revealing the rough wooden beams behind. The room opened up, revealing a vast, cavernous space filled with old furniture shrouded under layers of white sheets. A sickening feeling twisted in her stomach as her eyes darted around, searching for signs of life or death. Suddenly, the silence shattered. A blood-curdling growl erupted from somewhere in the darkness, cascading through the room like thunder, echoing off the walls. Clara's heart dropped. The creature was closer now. We have to move. Clara shouted, adrenaline surging as she lunged forward. They dodged between the dusty silhouettes of forgotten belongings. Just as she reached a heavy oak table, she heard the unmistakable sound of something heavy crashing against the far wall. The dark was alive, shifting and closing in around them. Look! Lila stumbled forward, pointing toward what appeared to be an opening on the far side of the room, nearly concealed by a tattered curtain. This way! They ran, pushing aside the musty cloth, revealing a narrow passage that seemed to lead deeper underground. With the growls echoing menacingly in the distance, they didn't stop to think. They plunged through the curtain, into the unknown. The air grew colder as they slipped into the passage, the walls slick and damp, as if the earth itself were tightening its grip on them. Clara's breath came in ragged gasps, the sound swallowed by the darkness. But a new sound began to emerge. It was a soft, almost rhythmic thumping. What is that? Lila whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Do you hear it? Clara strained to listen, her heart pounding in sync with the distant thud. It resonated through the walls, an unsettling lullaby that sent shivers racing down her spine. And then it hit her: this was no ordinary escape route. It felt like they were descending into something much darker and more sinister than they could imagine. What if there's no way out? Clara whispered, the gravity of fear settling heavily across her shoulders. With each step, they descended deeper, closer to whatever waited below. What awaited them in the heart of the darkness? Would they uncover the truth behind Lila's fate, or would they become just another echo lost to the shadows? The passage grew narrower, the damp walls closing in like the grip of a predator. Clara's heart raced as they crept forward, the rhythmic thumping pulsing through the air like a heartbeat. It was unsettling and alive, an ominous reminder that they weren't alone. With each cautious step, she felt a chill burrow deeper into her bones. Clara, Lila whispered, barely audible over the thumping. What if we find something down here that we aren't meant to see? What if we find a way out? Clara shot back, but the resolve in her voice wavered. They both knew the truth, there was no guarantee. The passage turned sharply, and the sound of the thumping morphed into something else, more chaotic, more desperate. It was as if dozens of heartbeats were thrumming in unison. A sudden wave of dread washed over Clara, and she felt the space around her constrict, suffocating any hope. Do you see that? Lila suddenly exclaimed, her finger trembling as she pointed ahead. A faint glimmer flickered in the oppressive darkness, a soft light that seemed like a beacon in a storm. Is that a door? Clara asked, squinting, trying to make out the shape. The light danced, casting strange shadows that flickered like dying embers. They pressed on, drawn to the glimmer, but as they approached, the thumping grew louder, practically drowning out their thoughts. It echoed off the stone walls, becoming an unsettling cacophony. Maybe we should turn back, Lila suggested, her voice trembling. It might be dangerous. But Clara shook her head emphatically. We can't. We have to see what's in there. With a gulp of determination, Clara reached for the door's handle. Cold metal met her palm, sending a jolt of energy through her. She hesitated. Could this be the end, or the beginning of something worse? But the growls in the distance reminded her there was no retreat. She turned the handle, and the door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit chamber. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of iron and something more poignant, more bizarre. Both girls gasped, eyes widening. Inside, an array of objects filled the room, illuminated by the flickering light. It looked like a twisted trophy room, walls lined with jars containing what appeared to be body parts. But not just any parts. They were collected, preserved like morbid keepsakes. Is that? Lila whispered, horrified. Clara's stomach turned. No, it can't be, and then they heard it. The rhythmic thumping now unmistakably came from within the room. It was a heartbeat, a steady, pulsing sound echoing in the chamber. What the hell is that? Lila trembled, gripping Clara's arm tightly. Before Clara could answer, movement in the shadows caught her eye. An indistinct figure emerged, its shape grotesque and wrong. The creature had eyes bloodshot, glinting in the low light, and it was staring straight at them. Panic surged through Clara, flooding her body with adrenaline as she dragged Lila back toward the door. But then, with a sudden jolt, the door swung shut, trapping them inside the nightmarish chamber. Clara's breath hitched. "We're not alone," she whispered, backing away slowly. The creature moved closer, the sound of its heartbeat now harmonizing with the frantic drum of their own. "Run!" Lila screamed. They turned, scrambling to find another exit as the chamber pulsated with anticipation, darkness pooling around them like water. Clara's mind raced. Where was the exit? The truth they'd sought was here, woven into the very fabric of this chamber, but what price would they pay to uncover it? Just as they neared what seemed like a potential escape, another roar erupted behind them, shaking the walls. The creature was on the hunt, and they were its prey. What other horrors lay in wait? What terrors were trapped among the shadows, hungry for release? As they ran deeper into the room, Clara knew they had only scratched the surface of the terrors that awaited in the darkness. The heartbeat echoed louder, and they could almost feel it in their bones. Would they uncover the truth or become just another echo in the dark? They stumbled over piles of what might have once been furniture, their breath ragged and panicked, the oppressive air thick as they searched for a way out. Each frantic step echoed in the chamber, mingling with the creature's low growl. The memory of the jars flashed in Clara's mind, fingers, limbs, pieces of lives now lost, and it pushed her to move faster. "Clara! Where do we go?" Lila's voice held a mix of fear and desperation, her eyes darting around as if she could spot an escape hidden within the shadows. "Anywhere but here." Clara shouted back, feeling a surge of rage against their situation. They couldn't die here. They couldn't let this twisted thing claim them. The pulse of the heartbeat thrummed louder, a sinister metronome counting down to their doom. Just when they thought hope was lost, Clara glimpsed a faint glow in the corner of the room. It flickered like a dying star, brightening just enough to draw her attention. "Lila! Over there!" Clara pointed, her heart racing as she pushed through the darkness. They barreled toward the light, their feet pounding on the cold stone floor. As they approached, the glow grew brighter, revealing a small passageway. But a loud growl erupted from behind them, sharp and hungry, slicing through the air like a knife. Clara dared to glance back, catching sight of the creature, its monstrous frame silhouetted against the dim light, eyes locked on them with predatory focus. "Now! Go!" Clara urged, shoving Lila ahead of her. They ducked into the passageway, squeezing through the tight opening. The walls felt like they were closing in, the darkness pressing against them as they crawled forward. Clara's hands were slick with sweat, and she could hear her heart trying to escape her chest. They pushed on, prayer-like whispers escaping their lips. "Please, let it be a way out." As they crawled deeper, the sound of the creature faded, replaced by an unsettling silence, like the calm before a storm. Clara turned to Lila, only shifting her focus long enough to ensure she was still beside her. The light from the chamber was fading behind them, swallowed by the oppressive blackness. "Do you think we lost it?" Lila panted, her voice trembling. I hope so," Clara replied, though the knot in her stomach tightened. She couldn't shake the feeling they were running towards something worse. Suddenly, the walls began to shake, a low rumbling reverberating through the tunnel. Clara's heart raced. It could be the creature, or something even worse trying to close in on them. They pressed forward, and just ahead, light flooded the passage, illuminating a larger room. Clara felt a surge of hope, but it was dashed when she caught a glimpse of what lay ahead. A figure stood silhouetted against the bright light. It was human but twisted, racked with some unseen horror. The sight made Clara recoil. "Who are you?" Lila called, her voice shaking. The figure slowly turned. Its eyes were vacant, shadows lurking behind them, an eerie smile twisting its mouth. "You shouldn't have come here. Now you belong to him," it rasped, every word dripping with malice. Clara's gut plunged. "What do you mean?" She shot back, dread pooling in her stomach. Before the figure could respond, a sound echoed from behind them, a deep, resonating growl fused with the echo of that awful heartbeat. Panic surged back as they exchanged terrified glances, understanding dawning in an instant. They weren't escaping, they were walking straight into a trap. Clara grabbed Lila's hand, and they both turned, ready to flee back down the tunnel when the ground beneath them jolted like an angry beast. An immense shadow loomed at the entrance, a hulking figure silhouetted against the light, compelling their hearts to race as they realized what they were up against. "What now?" Lila gasped, gripping Clara's arms so tightly her nails dug in. As the creature's eyes glowed, and the full weight of its presence bore down upon them, Clara braced for the chaos to come. The cavern groaned with their terror. What were they facing, and could they even hope to survive what lay beyond the shadows? Clara swallowed hard, but she knew one thing for certain: there was no turning back now. The hunt had only just begun. The growl shattered the silence, reverberating around them like an unholy song. Clara felt the vibrations deep in her bones, her instincts screaming for her to run. They stood frozen, paralyzed by fear as the shadow loomed larger, swallowing the light. "Clara, we need to move." Lila's voice broke through the haze of terror, snapping Clara back into action. "Right. Follow me," Clara shouted, not waiting for a response. They turned, racing towards the flickering light beyond the figure. As they dashed past, the creature lunged, monstrous claws leaving deep scratches in the stone just behind them. Clara threw a glance over her shoulder, and her heart sank. The figure in the light shifted toward them, revealing a gaunt face stretched tight over sharp features. It opened its mouth to scream, but before any sound could escape, Clara and Lila burst past it into the larger room. The space was filled with an assortment of horrors, walls lined with what appeared to be cages, each containing remnants of clothing, trinkets, or even bones. A chill raced down Clara's spine. "What is this place?" she whispered. "Don't dwell on it. We need to find a way out." Lila's voice was urgent, a reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. Clara's eyes scanned the area, searching desperately for a door or a window. The far side of the room was dimmer, the light from the passage behind dwindling quickly. She could hear the creature breaking through in the tunnel, its growls sounding more menacing as they echoed through the air. "Look!" Lila pointed to a barred window set high into the opposite wall. "It's too high." Clara's heart sank at the thought of being trapped. "We have to try," Lila insisted, her voice shaking but resolute. "Help me find something to climb." Clara darted toward a heap of debris that resembled old furniture. Wrapping her fingers around the edge of a wooden chair, she pulled the chair's splintered frame toward Lila, who was desperately scrounging through the piles for anything sturdy. The noise was deafening, and every sound felt like a countdown. With a makeshift step stool, Lila climbed up, her fingers grazing the stone window frame. She strained to reach the opening as Clara's heart raced. "I think it's big enough." Lila's voice rose with hope, but that hope was shattered within seconds as the creature barreled into the room, its eyes glowing with wicked hunger. Clara's breath hitched as she glanced at the hulking mass now lumbering toward them. "Faster," she urged. "If I can just—" Lila grunted, her body pressed against the wall as she squeezed her head through the bars. "The chair. Use the chair," Clara cried, knowing it was their only option. Without hesitating, Lila flipped the chair beneath her, using it to gain leverage. Clara could see a shadow falling over her friend, its claws extending ominously as it prepared to pounce. "Lila, now!" Clara screamed, panic surging as adrenaline coursed through her veins. With one last effort, Lila vaulted herself through the window, gasping as she landed on the other side, but there was no time for celebration. The creature lunged, its heavy body colliding with the chair and sending it crashing to the floor. Clara slipped behind the shattered pieces of furniture while the echo of growls reverberated through the air. "Lila, help me!" she shouted, terror clawing at her throat. Lila scrambled to her feet, searching for anything to help. Clara's heart raced as she saw the creature's massive head turn toward her, its eyes burning with malice, a predator about to claim its prey. Lila grabbed an old metal pipe from the ground, holding it like a weapon. "Get away from her!" she cried, her voice cracking with defiance. But the creature wasn't listening. It charged, a blur of dark fur and teeth, and in that moment, everything slowed. The echo of the heartbeat returned, pounding in Clara's ears. She was pinned between her impending doom and her only chance to survive. What could she do to stop it? With a surge of instinctual energy, Clara lunged forward, aiming to create a distraction. The creature's gaze locked onto her, and in that instant, the world around her seemed to blur, the fate of their lives balanced on a knife's edge. The chamber trembled, both from the monster's wrath and the decisions they had yet to make. Would Lila's desperate gambit work? Or was it too late for them both? In the chaos, Clara could only hope against hope. The hunt was far from over, and their lives hung precariously on the edge of a precipice. What awaited them beyond this nightmarish chamber, whether salvation or greater horrors, would soon reveal itself. Clara's heart raced, pounding in her chest like a drum. The creature, massive and malevolent, shifted toward her, revealing rows of teeth slick with something dark and glistening. Fear surged through her, a tidal wave crashing into her gut. She glanced at Lila, fury and desperation flickering in her friend's eyes as she readied the metal pipe, but it felt like a feather against the unstoppable force of the monster charging their way. "Clara!" Lila cried, "Get back!" Before she could fully comprehend, Clara was hurtling forward, the air thick with the tang of iron and decay. Instinct took over, and she pounced onto a nearby broken table, its legs creaking under her weight. With a wild cry, she grabbed a wooden shard still attached to the splintered frame, brandishing it as a makeshift weapon. It wouldn't do much against that beast, but it was better than nothing. The growls morphed into a chilling snarl, echoing around the room. Clara caught Lila's gaze, a silent exchange of determination passing between them. They were trapped, but they wouldn't go down without a fight. "On three," Lila whispered, gritting her teeth as she steadied herself, preparing to swing the pipe. The creature paused, sensing their resolve. Its eyes glinted with malevolence. 1-2 the creature lunged. The dim light of the chamber faded into shadow, leaving only the gleam of white teeth in the blackness. Clara's body reacted involuntarily, her legs pumping as she thrust the shard forward, desperate to aim for any vulnerable spot. 3. Lila shouted. Instead of clasping her hands over Clara, Lila swung the pipe with all her might, catching the beast on the side of its head. The sound of cracking bone filled the air, the creature recoiled, momentarily stunned. But there was no time to celebrate. Clara darted to the side, barely dodging the creature's thrashing claws as they scraped against the stone floor. "Lila, we have to find a way out," Clara shouted, urgency tight in her throat. "Over there." Lila pointed to another window, closer this time. Wooden planks lay scattered beneath it, a potential way to climb. They both instinctively ran for it, spurred by the looming shadow of the beast, which was recovering fast. "Go. I'll hold it back," Lila yelled. She swung the pipe again, aiming for the creature's massive legs. It howled in rage, the sound chilling Clara to her core. "No. You have to come with me." Clara felt the panic build as a sickening realization washed over her. Every moment spent fighting was another moment lost. "Just go," Lila demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut through the fear. With her chest tightening, Clara hesitated, but she could see the ferocity in her friend's stance. It was a plea for her to survive. The moments felt heavier, time stretching infinitely as she turned. Clara started to climb, her fingers grasping the rough wooden planks that jutted out. She could hear Lila shout and swing from behind, desperately buying time. The room trembled with ferocity. A heart-stopping soundtrack of growls and clashes echoed loudly. "Lila, hurry." The words slipped from Clara's lips like a prayer. "I'm coming." Just Lila was cut off, a roar filling the air that sent chills to Clara's bones. Just then, the chandelier above the beast swung precariously. The old wood creaked, and Clara watched in horror as the heavy structure began to sway. If it fell, would it be enough to hinder the creature? Lila caught sight of it, her eyes widening as she screamed, "Clara, drop it. Now!" In that split second, reality froze. Should she risk it all for Lila's plan? Clara's heart raced with a choice that felt impossible. One chance. One moment. "Lila!" She called out, her voice breaking, "Get out of the way." With a surge of desperation, Clara lunged forward, shoving her weight against the wooden planks just as the chandelier crashed down, shards flying like deadly hail. Clara gasped as the dust swirled around her, but when she opened her eyes, the creature was nowhere to be found. In the intense silence, the only sound Clara could hear was her own trembling breath mingled with Lila's frantic calls, "Clara! Are you okay?" But as Clara looked around, she felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. Something wasn't right. "Lila, where's the creature?" Just then, the growl returned, deep and guttural, but now it sounded different. Closer, surrounded them like an embrace. And it wasn't alone. Their breaths hitched as they glanced around, fully understanding the weight of their terrifying predicament. Little did they know, the real horror had just begun. The growls intensified, thrumming through the air like a distant storm. Clara's heart raced once more, each beat mixing with the low, ominous sound pressing down on her from every angle. The dust from the chandelier crash hung heavy in the air, swirling like a ghostly veil obscuring the threat. Lila stood frozen, her pipe clutched tightly, eyes darting wildly as every instinct screamed for them to escape. "Clara, we have to move," Lila urged, her voice strained. The resolve in her tone faltered as the growling grew louder, closer. Shadows darted in the corners of the room, fast and malevolent. Clara scrambled to her feet, shaking off the remnants of fear that threatened to pull her back down. She could feel a sense of urgency tightening around her chest. "I can't leave you. We have to stick together. No time. Just run. I'll catch up." Lila shouted back as the creature's growl morphed into a snarl, rattling Clara's bones. With a resigned nod, Clara dashed toward the nearest window, her breath coming in sharp bursts. The wooden planks beneath her feet creaked ominously, threatening to splinter beneath her weight. She felt another rumble, a low vibration in the ground that sent fresh panic slicing through her. Something was coming, something far more sinister than the creature they had just faced. The darkness around them pulsed, shadowy shapes coalescing from the corners of the room, morphing into forms Clara wished she could dismiss as a trick of her imagination. Panic surged as the new shadows emerged, more than one. She could see the glint of eyes shining in the dim light, each pair swirling with an insatiable hunger. "Clara!" Lila cried again, panic filling her voice as she swung the pipe wildly, striking at one of the emerging creatures. It yelped but didn't falter, its form twisted and grotesque. Without hesitation, it lunged towards Lila, sharp claws slicing through the dust. "Look out!" Clara screamed, skidding to a halt. Mustering every ounce of courage, she grabbed a fallen piece of wood, using it to throw at the beast. It sailed through the air but missed its mark, bouncing harmlessly against the wall. The creature turned its attention to her, eyes narrowing, a low growl escaping its throat, deep and threatening. "Clara, get out!" Lila shouted again, her voice cracking under the strain. "Go!" Fear clawed at Clara's insides. She could never leave Lila. They were in this together always. But doubt crept in, gnawing at her resolve. She needed a plan, something to create distraction, to buy time. Suddenly, the chandelier began to sway again, its remnants teetering on the edge. Clara's brain sparked with a wild idea. If they could use it to create chaos, it might just give them the edge to escape. "Lila!" she yelled, urgency surging, "we can knock the chandelier down again. It'll get them confused." "Are you crazy?" Lila shot back, hitting another beast with the pipe, but Clara didn't have time for hesitation. Seconds felt like a lifetime. The shadows were creeping closer, a malevolent tide rising. "Do it now. I'll hold them back." Clara nodded, desperation fueling her movements as she lunged for the remnants of the chandelier. She gripped the edge of a sturdy beam, clinging tightly as she hoisted herself up. The growls grew louder, echoing off the stone walls, but she couldn't let that fear stop her. With a swift, determined push, she shoved the beam. It teetered before surrendering to gravity, crashing down onto the creatures below. The room erupted in a cacophony of pain-filled roars and splintering wood. Struggling to regain her balance, Clara looked down, dread threading through her. One of the creatures, massive and twisting terrifyingly, was still in pursuit of Lila, now more furious than ever. "Lila, move!" Clara screamed, her heart pounding, urgency surging again as she spotted another corner of the room where shadows lingered, preparing to pounce. But then she saw it beneath the wreckage, another enormous shadow, limbs entwined, rising back up. "They're not all down." Clara felt the panic swell. Lila swung the pipe like a whirlwind. Her breath ragged, sweat glistening on her forehead, but it was far from enough. "Get out now!" Lila shouted, blood streaking her arm, adrenaline sharpening her words. Clara's instincts kicked in, they had one choice: escape. "This way!" she yelled, darting towards an old, cracked door on the far side of the room, fighting against the instinct to look back. Just as they reached the doorway, Clara's stomach dropped. Behind them, the growls morphed into a terrifying chorus, and the array of glowing eyes was closer than she had ever imagined. In that nightmare of sounds and sights, one realization struck her: this was only the beginning of a horror she could have never anticipated. As they slipped through the door, a single question raced through Clara's mind: what waited for them in the shadows beyond? Was there any hope of finding safety again, or were they destined to face an even darker fate? Clara stumbled through the old door, her heart pounding like a runaway drum. Behind her, the chaos of growling and snarling creatures melded into a nightmarish chorus. Shadows rushed past her, swirling and writhing as if animated by a dark will of their own. She shot a glance back just long enough to see Lila following, relentless and determined. "Keep moving!" Lila yelled, her voice echoing in the dim yellow glow from flickering sconces that lined the corridor. The fear coated her words, but Clara could see a flicker of grit in her eyes. They ran down a narrow hallway, its walls lined with peeling wallpaper and dusty portraits, faces staring down at them from another time. Clara shivered as the weight of those eyes seemed to seep into her bones. Each step away from the room felt like escaping from a suffocating nightmare, yet the chilling growls still haunted her ears. "Where do we go now?" Clara gasped, her lungs burning with exertion. They turned a corner, finding themselves in a vast, darkened library. Thick dust hung in the air, illuminated by shafts of moonlight sneaking through broken windows. "Find something to defend ourselves with," Lila shouted, her voice breaking as the growls outside began to ebb and flow, a chilling reminder of their pursuers. Clara's eyes scanned the room frantically, settling on a sturdy-looking cane resting against a nearby table. She lunged for it, gripping it tightly as she felt the cold wood against her palm. "Over there." Lila pointed toward a narrow door at the other end of the room, still filled with shadows. But there was no time to waste. As they took a hopeful step toward the door, the air shifted, and the growls surged again. The sound was almost a physical thing, wrapping around them like a vice. Clara's stomach twisted, dread pooling at the pit of her stomach. "No. Not yet." Lila shrieked as she swung her pipe at an emerging silhouette, the impact sending a loud crack against the wood. The force sent the creature reeling back into the darkness, but Clara felt certain there were more than they had anticipated. Then from the depths of the library, she noticed movement. A flicker, a glimmer of something shimmering like a mirage in the dark. It caught the moonlight just right. Clara. The door. Lila urged again, sensing Clara's hesitation. Wait, do you see that? Clara whispered, her eyes locked on the glimmer. She stepped closer, and a cold rush washed over her. It was a massive mirror, cracked and hung crookedly on the wall, the glass mourning about the horrors it had once reflected. Clara. Focus. Lila shouted urgently, her voice cutting through Clara's transfixed state. Clara tore her gaze away from the mirror, determination rising within her. They needed to escape. But before she could take a step, she heard a strange whisper permeating the air, barely audible above the growls. The words twisted around her, chilling her to the bone. "Help me!" a gasp caught in her throat. "Did you hear that?" Clara's eyes widened, scanning the library frantically. "I'm not hearing anything except those beasts outside." Lila snapped, glancing nervously at the door. "Come on." But it was too late. Clara was drawn towards the mirror, entranced. A pale hand reached through the shards, gnarled and thin, beckoning her. "Clara, get back." Lila's voice broke through once more, desperation drenched in it. As the darkness continued to swirl around, Clara felt an unexplainable pull, both alluring and terrifying. What was in the mirror? Was it a trap, or was there help waiting for them? In that moment, the growling crescendoed, reverberating through her chest. The shadowed figures began to break through the hallway, creating grotesque forms that swirled and morphed closer. "Now, Clara!" Lila yelled with a raw urgency, closing the distance between them. The decision lingered in Clara's mind like a storm cloud. Should she heed Lila's warning and run, or dare to find out what lay beyond the mirror's malevolent promise? Seconds felt like hours, the decision pressing down hard against her heart. With a final, trembling breath, Clara took a step closer to the mirror. What awaited her in that slimy grasp of darkness? Was it salvation, or a new horror? They were running out of time. Clara stood frozen before the mirror, its cracked surface glistening like dark ice, each jagged shard reflecting fragments of her fear. The air was thick with desperation, her heart pounding louder than the howls echoing through the darkness of the library. Lila's grip tightened on her arm, urgency radiating from her as she pulled Clara back from the brink. "No. Clara, don't." But Clara couldn't shake the feeling coursing through her, a desperate call masked in the quiet hum of terror. What if it's a way out? She whispered, her voice trembling as her gaze locked onto the pale hand stretching through the mirror. Lila's eyes widened, horrified. "That's not a way out. It's a trap." The growls outside crescendoed, overpowering the whispers of temptation. Clara could feel the shadows creeping closer, their wretched intentions sharpening against her spine. The presence of the creatures loomed behind them, waiting, hungry. But a flicker of hope surged within her. What if this was more than mere darkness? What if they could find a true escape? "No!" Lila cried again, her voice thick with panic. "Trust me. We have to go." Clara hesitated, torn between the pull of the mirror and the fiery determination in Lila's eyes. But what if "trust me"? Lila's fierce resolve sliced through the moment, igniting Clara's own. With a final glance at the beckoning hand, she ripped her stare away. "Okay. Let us go," she whispered, regret and fear swirling within her. They dashed toward the narrow door, Lila leading the charge, her eyes scanning for shadows as they sprinted. The growls grew louder, a thunderous sound that shook the very foundations of the house. Clara felt the walls close in, her chest tightening as anticipation and dread ignited within. "Almost there." Lila encouraged, glancing back to gauge their progress. Just as Clara was about to reach for the doorknob, a massive shadow loomed in the threshold, blocking their exit, a grotesque figure with matted fur and glowing eyes, bristling with ferocity. "Run!" Lila shouted, and they both stumbled back, spiraling further into the library's darkness. Adrenaline surged through Clara as she sprinted away, winging past toppled furniture and scattered debris, but the growl behind them pulsed like a drum. They dove through the labyrinth of bookshelves, ducking low as Lila swung her pipe at an advancing creature, her fear morphing into fierce anger with every swing. The hit landed, but it was hardly enough to stem the tide. Clara's mind raced. They had to outsmart the creature. "We need to split up," she suggested, a plan forming amidst the chaos. "Are you out of your mind?" Lila shouted, panic creeping into her tone. "We can't. Trust me." Clara shouted again, pushing through the tight space. "I'll lead it away. Just find a way out." Lila's hesitation flickered for a brief moment before she clenched her jaw and nodded. "Okay. Be careful." As they split, Clara felt the weight of their decisions hanging heavily as the creature turned to chase her. It barreled through the shelves, sending books cascading to the ground, barking ferociously. "Get out. Find safety." Clara's heart raced, determination coursing through her like wildfire. She ran toward a smaller door tucked behind a facade of books, praying that it would lead to freedom. A surge of hope glinted in her heart as she yanked the door open, stumbling into a narrow passageway dimly lit by flickering light far away. But as she turned to see how far the creature had followed, every ounce of hope drained from her. It charged after her, claws tearing through the books like paper, eyes verging on madness. Clara sprinted through the passage, the stench of decay mixing with fear and regret as she pressed deeper into the unknown. Behind her, the creature's growl filled the air, echoing off the rough stone walls. "Closer now." "Where are you?" Lila's voice faintly reached her, confusion threading through her words, but Clara had to find Lila. "I'm here. Keep going. I'll meet you." She shouted back, adrenaline fueling each step, desperation binding them together across the labyrinthine route. Emerging on the other side, Clara crashed into a dense fog, the mist coiled around her body like an unnatural embrace, suffocating and twisting. She stumbled, catching her breath, heart racing. "Lila." She could hear the rustling of movement beyond, shadows playing tricks. But then something shifted Lila. Clara spun toward the source of the commotion, praying that hope would emerge from the shadows. And there she was, standing straighter than ever, with fire in her eyes as she wielded the metal pipe like a sword. "Clara, this way." Lila called, gesturing toward an archway illuminated with moonlight just ahead. A rush of relief flooded through Clara as she barreled toward Lila, the creature's growls echoing behind them like a countdown. Together, they surged toward the light, squeezing through the archway. As they burst outside, the cool night air embraced them, and they were free. Heart racing, they turned to see the creature lurch to a halt. It howled, the sound filled with rage and hunger, but the shadows faded behind as dawn began to break on the horizon. "I can't breathe," Clara gasped, struggling to wrap her mind around their escape. "Did we do it?" Lila's shoulders dropped, relief washing over her face. "We did." As the sun broke over the horizon, washing the darkness in warm gold, the oppressive weight began to lift. The house stood in the distance, silent now, a shadow of its former self. Clara grabbed Lila's hands, squeezing tight not just as a gesture of solidarity, but one of gratitude. "Thank you, for trusting me." "Always," Lila breathed, a genuine smile breaking through the remnants of fear. Though the shadows of the past lingered, together they faced the dawn, ready to embrace the light away from that house of horrors. The night was behind them. Together, they would forge ahead. Together, they would ensure no darkness remained. They turned away, leaving the horrors behind, cherishing their newfound freedom, the light leading them onward now. Don't you dare forget this moment, my friends. You need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive story. This is the moment to show your support and smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. I want to see you flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. I'm dying to know what you think about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep this journey alive together.